Hey, Rick Sayes here. Welcome to Season 3 of the Outdoor Biz podcast, recorded at the Surf City Studios in Costa Mesa, California. I have another great season of interviews with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz to share their stories, tips, advice, productivity tricks and hacks, and ideas you can use to take your career business to the next level. Today's podcast is brought to you by InMotion Hosting. I've used InMotion Hosting to host my websites for years. Rick Sayes Photos, blogs, Stillwater's Consulting, and the Outdoor Biz podcast are all hosted with InMotion Hosting. If your New Year's resolution is to publish a blog, produce a podcast, or simply secure a domain name, go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/InMotion and sign up with them today. They make it simple and quick to get a new site up and running with easy installation tools. That's theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/InMotion. Get going today. I'm excited to have Neal Caplowe on the show today. Neal has been in the biz for many years and talks about how he went from retail to starting a graphic t-shirt business in the early days of the outdoor biz. Plenty of stories and nuggets in here for anyone in the industry or thinking of launching their own gig. Enjoy. Hey, Neal, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick, how you been?
I'm good. How you doing? You survived outdoor retailer?
Yes. Once again, still trying to get accustomed to Denver, but you know, a little better this time than the last time, and I'm sure each time will be a little better.
Yeah, I think that's good, though. I think we were a little too, what's one of the things about Salt Lake? Everybody had their spot and their favorite place, and they knew where to go get this. Now we have to do a little exploration, which is good for us.
Well, it's true. And I have to say, on a personal end, I mean, it couldn't be much easier for me. I've got a bunch of family that lives in Colorado, my brother-in-law's in Boulder area, and my brother's in Steamboat, but he's got a place in Denver, so I mean, it's not easy. Foreign to me. Yeah, it really does make it so easy.
You're lucky.
But I do miss Salt Lake a little bit, I have to tell you.
Yeah, I think we all do a little bit. I think we miss certain, our favorite restaurants and whatnot. But I think over time that'll fade.
Yeah, no question. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
No question. Time does that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
A lot of things fade in time, good and bad.
Right. Exactly.
So the first thing I want to hear about is your varsity lacrosse coaching experience. What was that like? Are you still doing that?
No, okay. I'm not, and I do miss it. It was. I still reflect on it. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, and like so many things in life, it happened. It was somewhat of an accident. Mm-hmm. My kids growing up, went through the whole t-ball and soccer and baseball and and all that kind of routine, and it wound up really happening ironically quasi through a business thing. At that time, I owned Coming Attractions, mm-hmm. and sort of, we always were very involved in the outdoor market, but a very major component of that business was we did a lot of private label business, where we would go solicit brands, whether it be like Woolrich or even Adidas or Calvin Klein or
so big brands.
We did work. Yeah, we did work for Patagonia. Big and small brands. Yeah, but it was a great little stable of accounts.
Yeah.
But one of the customers we went and pitched was a company called STX, which is a big lacrosse brand. They were the original lacrosse brand. Right now, probably the big gorilla in that circle is Warrior Lacrosse. Okay. Mm-hmm. But anyway, STX was one of the original guys, and just because the presence in our market, the Northern Virginia, DC market, you saw so many STX shirts and products. So I went and pitched them. And so I brought back the catalog and all that and left on the table. And my son, who was 9 years old, said, this looks pretty cool. And I go, it is. It's a great game. And I had become aware of it, but I still, when I grew up, I didn't even know about it.
So you didn't play lacrosse?
No, I grew up in Connecticut. There is a little funny anecdote with all that, which I'll share in a second. But so wasn't even familiar till I got around here, and Northern Virginia is a big area for it. It's not Baltimore and Long Island, which are in upstate New York, which are the epicenters. Right. But anyway, so I brought this home, and Casey's looking at it, and he goes, like, this looks pretty cool. And I go, yeah, it is. It's really cool. And he says, I want to play. I said, you're not playing because you're playing baseball, and we just bought you new baseball gloves. So that's what you're doing. And he says, oh, I don't want baseball's boring. And I'm like, all right, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, right.
So next thing you know, he started playing lacrosse at 9. And, shortly thereafter, just like any other dad, I show up, I'm watching the practices and everything. And at that age, one of the things everyone always struggles with in the, youth league things is coaches.
Right. Yep.
So they were looking for a coach, or so I said, I'll help. And, and I took to it. I really related, having never played the game. I realized very quickly, at least in my mind, it was really just like basketball, which I did play.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's picks and screens, and you shoot the ball in the net.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no idea. I didn't, growing up out in the West.
Well, it's exactly exactly. Although it's become a big deal.
Oh yeah, it's growing.
It's huge. So anyway, we started. So first year I was maybe like a helper coach, and then the second year I was an assistant coach, and then. I became, and I really loved it. I loved the kids. I mean, I still miss that.
Yeah.
And as he got older, I just moved up.
Oh, cool.
When he was in junior high, I was coaching, the A team, and he turned out to have a terrific lacrosse career. I mean, it got him into college.
No.
And,
oh, wow. Very good. You must be a good coach.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He was a good player, I tried to stay out of the way. And then I had one of, just through, again, circumstance, my daughter, Dana, wound up having her 5th grade teacher was played lacrosse at a very high level and so on. So I reached out to Chad, who's that guy's name, still friendly with to this day, and asked him to help. So now I recruited some good help.
Oh, so you have some talent around you.
Exactly. And whether it's, with work or anything else, you go try to put the best people around you,
Yeah.
And so that's how it all started. And then when Chad wound up getting a head coaching job, he brought me in as assistant head coach and coaching the offense.
Okay.
And so for 4 years, he and I coached, varsity high school lacrosse in Northern Virginia, which was at a, pretty high level.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I mean, I loved being around the kids, and, and at that point in time, my kids were in high school or after, so they were, they didn't need anybody to step in and help.
Yeah,
and Dana played lacrosse. She played girls lacrosse, and she did very well with that. So
that's great. That's fun. I coached Little League when I was in my hometown for a while. It was super fun. Little League, Pony League, all that. Yeah, it's girls softball. Very fun. Yeah. So
the little anecdote was, my dad, who was a pretty good athlete, and he, Casey's telling him he's playing lacrosse, and he's going like, oh yeah, I know that. That, it's a great game. Now he grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, like in the 20s, right? In the 30s.
Okay.
And I'm like, how do you know lacrosse? What do you, I can't believe it. And he goes, when he was a kid, and this was in New Haven, he would go, and his job, he had a job feeding and watering the Yale polo ponies.
Wow.
And he'd get up at 7:00 in the morning before school and go feed and water the ponies and everything else. And the Yale lacrosse team was practicing on the field adjacent to the stables.
Okay.
And he'd go, if he had time, he'd hang out and watch them.
Yeah. I'll bet they were good. I mean, Yale, that's one of those, one of the best,
for 100 years.
Right, exactly, right.
And they won the national title this year.
Oh, cool. Wow, right on.
Yeah, very cool.
So I understand.
It's funny that he knew that.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting story. So I understand you also play a little golf. Did you play on the American University varsity golf team?
Clearly, you got that from Ricky.
Ricky Schlesinger asked me to ask about that. Yeah, and sorry, folks, we'll get off the sports stuff here in a minute.
A dear friend of both of ours.
Right.
Yes, I did, and I played in high school, and I grew up playing golf. And back to my dad and mom. I mean, they both played golf, and they were both pretty good players. I mean, at a regional level.
Yeah.
And so I played golf from junior circuit and actually traveled, in the Connecticut area on the junior circuit. And when I was a kid, I mean, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pro golfer.
Wow, cool. Yeah.
And I played on my high school team and, captained that, and we did pretty well. And then I pretty quickly learned, Rick, that if I wanted to eat at all, being a pro golfer was probably not going to be an option.
Yeah.
As much as when you're 12 and 13 and 14, everything's blue sky.
Well, then you either grow into or out of things along the sports line that you can do, right? You don't grow or
right. And I did play for 2 years at American University, and I think mostly lost interest in that because it's just taking so much time, and golf still takes so much time, which is one of my big sort of issues with it. You can't go do it. I've become a huge skier and love that. And
no, golf's a 5 hour. It's a 5 hour day, no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
It's 5 hours out of your day, and if it's a weekend, it's
if it's a minute. If it's a minute,
crazy. Yeah. So, how did you get into the outdoor side of the biz? Was that with Coming Attractions? Did you guys launch that in the outdoor, or you just started calling on those?
We did launch it in the outdoor.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you how I started. I always, my dad owned his own business, and I think I was always drawn to doing something myself. I know I was. I mean, that was always a very big part of me. You
guys were a very entrepreneurial family, yeah.
Yeah, and he was the Lincoln Mercury dealer in New Haven, Connecticut, and did super well. And and I just wanted to do something on my own that I could go hang up on the bulletin board and say, I did that.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And my first, and dabbled with a few thoughts with some friends opening up a bike shop or opening up an outdoor shop, because I was definitely into, kayaking, especially around here in Northern Virginia. It's a big kayaking area. So, did that and, for years and years, and got into climbing and, because again, there's a lot of that around here as well.
Yeah.
Not like California, but there's a lot of it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah, several trips to Seneca Rocks and things like that. And then wound up getting a job which I don't even know how many people remember it, at a place called Herman Sporting Goods.
Oh yeah, so that was your first sort of outdoor related job? Okay.
Well, it was my first job.
Okay, wow.
Well, not literally first. I guess, you had some stuff in college and whatever. But yes, it was my first real job. And they were in the midst of a big growth mode. And for, those people who are not that familiar with them, they were the real first big box sporting goods store. And, they were the first Sports Authority before them. They were the first Dick's before them and everything else. And one of the things they decided to do in their expansion was they created this department called High Adventure, which was pretty cool and very neatly done and conceived. And it was actually a store within a store concept. So where the logistics allowed, you literally could walk into the High Adventure store, shop it. It was very, they had North Face and brands like Camp 7, which are gone, and and Vask boots, and all those kinds of things. Svea stoves.
Wow, yeah.
And exactly, and very neatly and well done. And you could walk in, shop the store, and walk out, and you never had to be in the sporting goods section.
Okay.
So
you could be like you were in an outdoor store, outdoor specialty sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Like cool. You were in an REI or
right.
Or an A16 or whatever. And I just, Rick, it was one of those dumb lucky things. I was in the right place at the right time. A couple of people who were there in front of me wound up leaving for one reason or another. Next thing you know, it's like, okay, here are the keys.
Nice.
Honest to goodness. And myself and two other guys were given the responsibility for the entire chain. Now, not every Herman's had a High Adventure.
Yeah.
But there were probably, at the end of the day, 16 or 17 stores.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had total maybe 50 or 60. That, we were responsible for the merchandising mix and for the buying and what was in the stores and everything else. And it was amazing,
Yeah. So
and and it was there that I came up with the idea, and I've always been a really good product guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an idea for some outdoor graphic inspired t-shirts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was really doing it. And I really felt pretty confident that no one was doing it, because I was like, heck, if somebody was doing it and they didn't come to me to try to buy it.
Right. Yeah. If you were shopping for the store, you would know. Right.
Yeah. And if they were doing it, they were doing such a crappy job, because how could you not come to me?
Yeah.
Right. You know,
right.
Or the High Adventure Group. So there's a guy who, and Ricky and I are still friendly with to this day, a guy by the name of Phil Nicholson, or Nick, everybody, is Nick Nicholson, who is an incredible artist who worked for me at Herman's. I got an idea for these outdoor graphics, and he was that kind of guy too,
Mm-hmm.
and so he said, yeah, I got, actually it's an interesting idea. I got a couple of things that I already did in the can that might be good.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, it was this backpacker graphic with the back, the house on your back.
Uh-huh. Cool.
And I said, oh my God, dude, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I said, now we need to design a kayak, a climber.
We need a little collection here. Right. Yeah.
We need a little collection. He put that together. I directed it. Yeah, that's great. No, to fix this a little bit. I mean, it didn't require much. I mean, Nick is an incredible illustrator, and to say he had his finger on the pulse of that stuff would be an understatement.
Wow, perfect.
And so we put this little collection together to start with, and I left Herman's and packed my bags and took it on the road.
Really? Wow. So it must have been going pretty well to get you to leave Herman's, right? I mean, you must have had some.
Well,
or you just said, "This is it. I'm going to go for it."
Yeah. Okay. That's more my style. I mean, right or wrong, I do.
No, that's cool. That's cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and no regrets. I mean, I if I had it to do over again in a perfect world, I probably would have stayed at Herman's a little longer, because I think I could have learned more.
Oh, right.
And
test
so
the concept.
I wound up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I wound in terms of running a business, and so I wound up paying for that experience myself.
Right. Yeah.
So which is always more expensive.
Yeah, but you might learn the lesson better that way.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
So we did that, and as that started to unfold, and we got a lot of good support and interest, and people were buying it.
Let me backtrack a little bit. So when you left Herman's, it was just you and Phil doing the designs? You literally took it on the road.
Not even Nick. He stayed at Herman's for a little.
Okay, but he was still doing your designs and stuff.
Yeah, he was. He was.
So you literally just bagged up some samples and hit the road.
I found somebody to print them.
Yeah, very
exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
I went. Yeah, and I took these things, and I think we wound up starting with 4 or 5 graphics. And I had some samples made, and I'll never forget when I called the MS, who was, at that time they were the big guy,
right,
with a lot of stores. And I called the guy there. Actually, it's funny. I remember his name, a guy by the name of Bob Hall.
Okay.
And I called him up and I said, I have these, graphics, and it's like hiking shirts and kayak shirts, and because these were the theme of the graphics.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, yeah, okay, come on in. So I came in and I go lay these things out on the desk, and he's like looking at me like I have 2 heads, and he's like, well, where's your kayak shirt? And I go, it's right there, and it was sitting on the desk. He says, oh, I thought you meant you had like a paddle jacket or something, And I go, no.
No, the casual collection.
Right. This is like for après.
So you guys, you ran Coming Attractions for a lot of years. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And you guys,
it was like late 70s.
Yeah, across the country too, right? I mean, you had.
Oh yeah. So shortly after we got distribution, and I really felt like we wanted to grow it and have more business, I actually started designing a whole outdoor collection. Which included, wool shirts and hiking shorts.
Oh, okay. So you got into the outdoor apparel
side.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we got into the whole apparel side, and there was a lot of great things. I'm sure. Actually, you were. I was talking to Lee Turlington at the show.
Right, yeah, right.
And you cruised by for a brief moment and a quick.
I heard my name. I was walking by, and somebody in that crowd mentioned my name.
Well,
I looked back and was just, what?
Yeah,
What?
exactly. Time means everything, right? Well, that was because we were talking, and Lee made a comment. This fellow he was with, he says Neal was the first guy to have really sort of, an outdoor collection clothing in front of everybody else.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh my God, I can't believe you remember that.
So did you? I always thought it was.
That led to a conversation about Ricky's comments, and so that's where your name,
gotcha, the podcast,
how you were dragged into the conversation.
No, that was great. I thought it was only T-shirts. So how long?
Rick, in the scheme of things, the clothing thing did not last more than 3 or 4 years, and not because it wasn't a good idea, and we had a lot of good reception. It was a classic case of a great idea. Not enough experience to do it, since everything I was doing, I was cutting my teeth on,
mm-hmm.
And we didn't have enough money.
Yeah, right. Got you. Mm-hmm.
The whole thing was, financed by the seat of your pants. And with T-shirts, you can quite honestly turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go buy product, get it printed, sell it, and the turn time is pretty short.
Right.
Whereas, and then and it further distracted me, and I would spend days and weeks at a time up in New York and shopping fabrics and finding sewing factories, and I was doing the whole thing myself.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's when shortly thereafter, that's when Ricky came aboard, and and really we sort of ran things together, and I basically spent a bunch of time on that, and he spent a lot of time just making sure the T-shirt thing, not that he wasn't involved in the other end of it, but I think that was his primary focus, and it gave me a little, freed me up a little bit. So he would go out and
sell it, and you could go out and figure out how to get it made and all those things. Yeah.
Right. And he was involved in a lot of the,
small business. Yeah, you're involved in everything.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Take out the trash.
Yeah. So other than the financing, what were some of the other challenges you guys came across? I mean, you were pioneering a category, right? I mean.
Yes. And I've got a lot of history with that. It's like I got good news and bad news, and it's the same news, and the news is that, if you're the first with an idea, you wind up, having to convince everybody it's a good idea.
Yeah. Right.
And it just makes it hard. I did it again with the sports science thing, which, we started 10, 12 years ago,
So what were before we get to sports science, what were some of the big wins on the coming attraction side? I mean, obviously getting into EMS had to be huge.
Honestly, Rick, on the apparel side, I don't really remember where, we were selling, and I know we sold a bunch of it, we did, I designed a reversible corduroy and wool vest, which was sort of cool. And, hiking short with cargo pockets that a lot of people hadn't done at that time.
Yeah, right.
And we had some success with them, but again, it was just, there were too many missing pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And as that became more and more problematic to just navigate all that, the T-shirt thing was moving along, and we were like, okay, let's go concentrate on this. We're good at it. Let's go concentrate on this. Not that we weren't good at the other thing, and those weren't good ideas, but it was just, a more difficult road.
Focus, right? Yeah.
Better to focus.
Yeah.
And then once we started saying, okay, we're going to commit ourselves to the T-shirt knit graphics business, you then start saying, okay, where is the volume?
Mm-hmm.
Where can you really go get some volume? And that's when I came up with the idea for this private label thing, where we then just started to go and approach people like a Woolrich or or a Calvin Klein or a Fila. And
so that was the birth of sports science. That's how sports science kind of came.
No.
Okay.
That was all, because that was really it was all part of Coming Attractions, and Coming Attractions ran, plus or minus from, the end of the 70s to 2000.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
So, it was 23, 24 years, something like that. Yeah. And so that was all that. And we drove that with graphic design, really. And I had at that time, at its peak, we probably had 6 graphic designers on staff.
Wow.
Just cranking out artwork, because I would sit down with the customer and part of their design and merchandising team for that category.
Mm-hmm.
And, they would share their vision for the coming season. And here's our themes, and here's our color stories, and here's what the other products, here's our jackets and shirts look like, and here's what we're doing. So then I would go in and design the product to fit and coordinate with those other categories they were doing. And we'd come back to them with a presentation, and they go like, oh yeah, that's great. We love that. We don't like that one.
Sure.
Can you change this? Blah, blah, blah. And, and then we go and produce it for them.
And so how did the transition from coming attractions to sports science go?
Okay. Well, mind you, while all this is going on for 20 some odd years, we never, ever, ever got out of the outdoor business. And I still probably feel is my cornerstone and my anchor in business, and, a little bit of my love. I still enjoy that activity and that whole thing. So we sold Coming Attractions, closed a couple of divisions, sold it, part of it. And it was the biggest problem we ran into was the market and the production had moved, and everything was being done in Mexico and Central America. Yeah. And I didn't make that move, although I had an opportunity to, and chose not to.
Okay.
Just because I didn't want to deal with it.
Right.
And, if I had it to do again, maybe I would rethink that. But anyway, and it just got tougher and tougher, and price points just became harder to hit, and category got bigger, so it got more competitive. And it just like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a couple other little things internally that happened, and that, just sort of were flies in the ointment kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. This came time
so anyway, so I wound up finishing that up. I kept my finger in the design and merchandising business, and still did some consulting and stuff like that. And then probably, maybe, I don't know, 04, 05, 05, 06, I came up with the thought I said, there's nobody doing a performance t-shirt that, offers full performance, but has that casual look and vibe. And, I just think that's going to be, that's the direction it's all going.
Yeah.
And
for a long time, those had that real stiff nylon.
I know. And it was like, again, we saw, which really goes back a little bit to some lacrosse things, because we, the guys who started Under Armour, which were that tight-fitting traditional nylon stuff, are from the DC area.
Right.
And I tell the story that when, Casey and the teams, and I was coaching, the kids were playing their rec league ball on whatever, Saturdays or Sundays. A couple of guys from Under Armour would show up at the game. They were like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years old. This is in the 90s. And they'd pick up, they'd open the trunk and hawk shirts out of the back of the back of their car.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that the shirts were, they were great for what they were designed for under pads and things like that. But they really, as much as they became a look and a style, I never really related to that.
Yeah, they weren't. They never were very comfortable. Yeah.
No.
They were functional, but they were very comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, if you're wearing pads and gloves in hockey or lacrosse or football, stuff like that, it's not about comfortable. You got other stuff on your mind.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
So, I felt there was an opportunity. And again, I always felt and still feel to this day that performance apparel and fabrics and all that stuff, completely emanates out of the outdoor marketplace.
Right.
And to, when the athletic people or even running markets sort of feel like they talk about performance, I just, I, with no disrespect, roll my eyes and go like, they don't even, they don't even, they're just feeding at the trough,
Right.
which is fine. Look, everybody's got their place.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Anyway, and this goes back to the point we touched on before, because when I came up with this idea, all the performance was the shiny film and polyester stuff. And, and so and I said, this is not where it's going to go. And so came out with, now,
did you have to travel far and wide to find that? How did you find, or did it already exist? You knew about it. It just wasn't in T-shirts yet.
It really wasn't. I did take one little crack at it in the late 90s before, Coming Attractions was wrapped up and everything else, where we did a bunch of fabric using Coolmax.
Okay.
And again, I've never, ever, drifted too far from keeping an interest in product development and fabrications and stuff like that. I always loved that. And the part of the problem you ran in with Coolmax, although, first of all, the stuff pilled like crazy, number one, and, as much as they talked about trying to deal with the odor management and the polyester, it was just, right? It was awful.
It was bad.
You couldn't even keep it in your closet.
No, you had to wear it a few times and throw it away practically.
I know.
Yeah.
So we basically, between that and everything else, we just sort of passed it in. And then I don't remember how I got turned on to them. Again, just probably, just keeping my ear to the ground.
Yeah.
But I met the people at Dry Release.
Okay.
And at that time, it was Beth Moore, whose dad was the one who invented Dry Release. Fred was the one who created it. Your classic was on the DuPont team, was working on the, Coolmax project and everything else, and came up with this idea and concept and said, okay, I think this is the way to go, and I'm going to go do it.
Cool,
and left to go create that.
Nice.
And, and we still use a lot of that today, not exclusively, but, it's still our signature item.
Yeah, you guys are doing really well.
Yeah. And so that's that's how that whole thing started. And, I really wanted, one of the core things with sports science, other than feeling like I had a vision and a niche, having worked for so many years for all these different brands, whether it be, a Woolrich or, whatever, Fila or Patagonia or American Eagle Outfitters, whatever. It was like, heck, I could do that. I don't have to do that for somebody else. I could go do that for myself.
Yeah.
Which it's much easier to say than it is to do.
Right.
Like so many things in life.
You know. Well, once you throw that challenge down, then you got to go, stand behind it, and sometimes it's challenging.
Well, it's always challenging. It's always challenging.
Right. That's true.
It's always challenging. The thing you run into that's, it's, and I never really sort of thought it in these terms, but for me, the vision is a little bit like an iceberg. You see the thing sticking out, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. That's cool. That's great. And, it's gorgeous and beautiful and everything else. But there's so much that goes on behind it, underneath it, that, and if you aren't up to the task on those components, the whole thing suffers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You got to have all your, all the aspects covered. Otherwise, all the
boxes checked.
That you didn't see could sink you. Yeah.
And I will tell you, one of the things that I knew that I learned that from being in business, and really one of the things I tried to do with the sports science is I actually brought it to a few people to say, let's do this together. Who had some of that operational and
there you go.
And fundamental infrastructure, and unfortunately, a few of the couple of paths we went on with that didn't work out, and a lot of just for life circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, the first guys we went with, it turns out their company was sold. And, everything got turned upside down, and, we were a new piece of the puzzle. So it sort of got left on the side.
Stop this. Yeah. Right.
Right.
That's too bad,
right.
Yeah.
We've got other, just.
But you've had a good run. I mean, you guys survived a lot, and you're still there, and you're still, Still getting up to bat every day, so that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Congratulations on
and
that.
I thank you.
Yeah.
I do take some pride in that. And,
I would. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
and it's a great product.
It is.
It really,
yeah.
is.
I've been by the booth many times. Yeah. No, it's a great product. Yeah.
Right.
People should check that out. If you haven't checked out Sports Science at Outdoor Retailer, folks, get over there and check it out. Good stuff. Right. Let's shift gears a little bit. Tell us about any nonprofit work that you do. Do you guys support any nonprofits? I know you do personally, I'm sure.
Right. We've done some little. I'm a big thing with kids, and maybe goes back to this coaching thing even a little bit. Not that that one reinforces the other. I just sort of always feel that way. So we've done some little things and projects where we've done some donated some product and things we have to some inner city things and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We haven't done as much on that as I'd like, partly because the business is just, I don't feel like we've ever got to the point where we could really focus our efforts on that to the degree that I'd love to. We also are, we try to support as best we can. We've done some stuff with, which is now going back several years, but with Big City Mountaineers.
Oh, great.
Actually, I know they've had some change of leadership there and everything else. So
Brian Martin was just on the last episode, actually. He's the ED.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that when we did some things with them, it was before him. I guess whoever was the fellow before Brian. Mm-hmm. But, I think that kind of stuff is very important to me, and we really try to do. The other thing is, and it's, quasi-personal, although, sometimes the lines get blurred in terms of personal / sort of business focuses and interests. But the environment is a really important issue for me. I've got some very dear friends who are big players in that market that they've, in terms of a lot of super fund kind of things, terms of, even the Detroit, or not Detroit, was the
the Flint water thing.
Flint, thank you, Flint water thing. They're very involved in that, and and very much behind the curtain, but we support them very actively. It's a company called Citizens Clearinghouse for Hazardous Waste, and actually I think they've changed their name, but it's something.
Yeah, cool.
Environmental justice or something like that.
Cool, that's great.
And so those are things that I feel pretty strongly about, and do the best we can when we can.
Yep, that's awesome. And do you still get outdoors a lot? Do you still get in a kayak every once in a while?
I do. I mentioned earlier, I'm, hiking and everything else on day stuff, I do a bunch of whenever I can. Yeah. I'm an avid skier and have become an avid skier, and lucky enough to have my brother live in Colorado. So, and he and I are close enough, I can go and pose on him.
Great.
When I need to. And
that's awesome.
And when I want to.
Right.
So yeah, I do get outdoors. I can't tell you the last time I went paddling. That's been years.
Okay.
And still do a little bit of, which is sort of more connected to hiking, but some scrambling and, some climbing, stuff like that, but nothing technical.
Yeah, cool.
So
that's
definitely
good.
Keeping active. And
good.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, right now, my, on that side of the fence, I mean, skiing is my sort of first, second, and third
great
love.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, good. Get it while you can.
I know, buddy.
I don't do that anymore. It's too hard on the knees. So do you have any suggestions or advice for folks either wanting to get into the outdoor biz or grow their career if they're already in the business?
I think, I've learned a lot over the years. I think it's the age-old story. I feel like I learn stuff every day, and I think when you stop learning, it really starts to get old. I think focus is really important, whether, again, if you want to get into the outdoor business or you're in it and you want to, move forward and grow your career. I think you've got to pick a focus. Let me rephrase that. To the extent you can pick a focus and put your energy and efforts behind it, I think that will produce positive results.
Yeah.
I just recently had a conversation with somebody, speaking of learning. We were talking about some sales and product and marketing things, and he made the comment, it's product, program, and process. And I was like, damn, that's good, And it was one of those simple things, Rick, that, if you think about it and reflect about it, you could talk about it for an hour, and, whether you would have chosen those words, that would have been what you were talking about.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And I feel like I've got the product end pretty well down. And as I move forward in the spirit of full omissions, as I move forward through that little alliteration of from product to program, I probably get a little
loose on the program side.
Get a little looser on the program side.
Yeah.
And God help me on the process side.
Yeah.
So in keeping with that, my one advice, and it's tough as a startup thing.
Yeah.
If you're working for somebody, it becomes a little easier because inherently by working for somebody means there's at least teammates around you. But you need to surround yourself with people who are good at those key junctures that are not your strength, because nobody's going to be good at everything. It's just not realistic,
Right.
And if you have to rely on yourself to be good at everything, what's that age-old adage? A jack of all trades, a master of none.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yeah, get in and that's where I think so many businesses, and why business relates to sports so much, is because it's all about that team concept. And if you have great teams and great talented people doing every aspect of the business, you're probably going to do pretty well. If you don't, and you have just one side of that that's not doing well, it could sink the whole business.
Absolutely. So. And today, more than ever.
Right. Yeah. Right. Everybody's
today more than ever
on a slippery slope. Yeah.
One of my favorite little things or adages I say, we live in a day and age right now that if you have a good idea at breakfast, by noon there'll be 14 people on the street corner doing the exact same thing.
Good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And some of those 14 people will actually be doing it every bit as well or better than you.
Yeah.
The majority of them will be just sort of muddling around and probably, doing some things well and some things not. And then, the bottom tier are like, they're just taking up air and space.
Yeah, and blowing through money.
And blowing through money and mucking up the water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. No,
but
that's good. I like that.
So, and your analogy to team, and we always come back to sports, and I think it is so true. Even the individual sports, you don't see the team behind the tennis player or the golfer, but you better believe they got a team.
Oh yeah.
Their coaches, their nutritionists, their managers that free them up to not have to worry about all the other crap.
Yeah.
So on.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Do you get out and walk every day, or?
Look, my family is, as much as work has been such a key part of my life, and I enjoy it, and it energizes me in so many things. I mean, my family is, sort of first and second and third on the list, and we've been very, very lucky. We have a grandson 2 years ago, and
nice.
and Dana, my daughter's ready to have number two.
All right, very cool.
I mean, that's changed. That now is the top rung of the ladder.
Right.
But not a big deal. I mean, I try pretty much every morning. I, sort of get up and get the coffee on and go for, a walk that varies in length, but just try to, clear my head and start the day, looking at the trees and not thinking about anything. And
nice. Very good.
I think that's good. I still stay pretty active in terms of getting to the gym. started to run a little bit, but I don't do much of it just because I think it just, at least for me, it just beats the heck out of your body.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, and if you ski a lot, you got to stay in some kind of shape. So yeah,
Exactly.
The gym's
And
good, right?
that's one of my. I'm so happy I have that love for skiing, because it does, even this time of year, all I'm thinking about is, okay, I gotta stay in shape, because
don't let it go. Yeah.
It's going to be December before you know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. How about books? Are you a big reader? Do you have any favorite books, or do you give
I'm
books as
not.
gifts? No. Okay.
I'm not. No. I'm
Podcast.
not.
You
And
mentioned podcast. What's your? Don't you? What's that podcast you said you listen to almost every day?
Well, I do, and it goes in spurts. There's a few things I listen to. I mentioned to you the Daily, which I find interesting and more than timely in today's world. On the sports side, I listen to PTI.
Okay.
On in different spurts and occasions. I think Kornheiser and Wilbarn have a great take on a riot.
Yeah, they do. They have a good good relationship and play off one another too. Those guys are hilarious.
They do. They really, really do. I've listened to on occasion this thing, Malcolm Gladwell, Revisionist History.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I've heard of it, really, but I haven't heard it.
Yeah. He's the guy who wrote this book, The Tipping Point.
Yeah,
and,
I know him real well.
Some things like, yeah,
good books.
And you should check it out.
I'll check it out.
There's some really interesting things in there. They sometimes get a little thick and sloggy in terms of movement, but but sometimes some really interesting takes on things.
Oh, cool. We'll link to those in the show notes. Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, So I think anybody would.
There's so many good podcasts out there nowadays. It's like books, right? I mean, I think that's the value of the spoken word. You can do other things while you're listening. If you're reading, you're reading. Podcast, you can exercise, you can drive, you can do whatever. So that's right. That's why the growth. Right. Yeah. What about a favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
My favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100. I would probably say, and I have a couple,
good.
In a few different iterations, but a little either wool or insulated vest.
Okay, good, yeah.
Yeah,
I like it.
And as I say, I have a couple from a few different brands.
Sure.
All different weights.
Yep.
And
that's a good one. Sometimes that's all you need to keep your core warm, and you're good.
I'm telling you, and it's like I find, as far as even where we are here, sometimes you get a chill just because the air conditioning's blasting and it's the humidity's X number of degrees outside. You come in and you just feel like you want something, and you got it and it works, and it almost feels like it's not even there.
Yep, that's a good one. Yep. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to ask of our listeners, or say to our listeners?
No, I've enjoyed this tremendously. I think you're doing a great job in bringing the outdoor, view of the outdoor industry, to the marketplace and to the community.
Super fun. It's been fun. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Well, good. It clearly you could sense that.
And all the guests. I mean, it's really about the guests. They've been you and all the other previous 100 and some odd. It's been great. They've been generous of their time and very insightful, and it's super fun. So yeah, appreciate it.
Well, good. Yeah, and I mean, look, if anybody finds any of it interesting and amusing, great. If somebody could take a nugget from any of it, good for them.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in every episode. I think. Yeah.
Use it well, and
it's very good. Yeah. And if people want to reach out and follow up with you, how can they find you? Best way to find you is LinkedIn, or what do you think?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I don't do. We touched on very briefly about social media stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Before we really get started, and I don't do a great job with that, and I lament that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do keep half an eye on LinkedIn of all the different things. I'm not on it every day, but I definitely keep up with it at least some respectable level. So by that is perfectly fine.
Cool.
And look, if anybody wanted to reach out to me, I'm always happy. I sort of feel like much like life, my door's always open. And,
Great.
I mean, if somebody wanted to send an email to Neal, which is Neal, at sportscienceusa.com, it'd be my pleasure.
Great.
So
good. Well, we'll put links to all that in the show notes, and people can reach out to you and ask you some follow-up questions if they have any. Well, I appreciate the time, Neal. It's been great catching up. It's always good to chat with you.
Thank you, Rick. Back at you.
Yeah, I'm glad I ran into you guys.
We've known each other for a long time.
Long time. Yeah. Back to the Eagle Creek days.
All been. Yeah. All good. Good.
Very fun. Well, I look forward to seeing you again at OR in the winter.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wasn't Neal great? I hope you enjoyed that conversation. You can follow up with Neal on LinkedIn and by email at neal@sportscienceusa.com. Neal is spelled Neal. You'll find links to everything we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode 127. Be sure to hit your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. Thanks for listening. Today's podcast is brought to you by WordPress. I've used WordPress to build a number of websites, including Stillwater's Consulting and the Outdoor Biz podcast. There are a number of themes and plugins available both free and for purchase, enabling you to easily create the custom look and feel you want. If you're starting an online business, publishing a blog, and looking to take your online presence to the next level, visit theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/WordPress and get going today. With simple installation tools and thousands of themes to choose from, you'll be up and running in no time. Go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/WordPress and get your site launched today. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Be sure to go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you'll find all the links to the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. And be sure to make time to get outside and take someone with you.